Hi there, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie and this is another Craft with 5 collaboration. Be sure to check out the playlist in the description below for the other participants. And this is basically where we're taking 5 items, 5 specific items, and we're trying to make a project out of them. This month our 5 items are something that is a snowflake, silver or gray, so something that's silver or gray. We need to use dyes, we need to use some sort of powder, and we also need to do ribbon. And I am going to make a card again because immediately I thought of Christmas cards, and you know, it's never too early to start on those, right? So that's what I'm going to focus on, I think. Now, for the items that I have pre-selected that I think I want to try and use, as far as snowflakes go, I've got a few options. I picked out a couple dyes. This one here is what I'm thinking I'm going to use. I did contemplate this one, but I'm not too sure about it. But I think both of these are from Memory Box. This one is called the Purslane Snowflake, and I think the other one is like Marquee. Let me just see. Yeah, Snowflake Marquee. Actually, this might not be Memory Box, is it? Yeah, it's Memory Box. Okay, so those are the 2 that I am playing with, but really any snowflake dye would work, I'm thinking. I also have this background snowflake dye, which is from Pink Fresh. And then we have embossing folders, and I'm hoping with putting the white sheet in, you can see it a little better. I have written on the back HA Snowflakes 1, and this is HA Snowflakes 2, so I'm assuming it's Hero Arts, but I didn't know Hero Arts and Sizzix work together, maybe. And that's the second. You can see that, the second snowflake. So I think snowflakes I've got covered. I think I've got dyes covered, so that's 2 of the items. As far as powders go, I've pulled out this Wow Metallic Silver Sparkle Embossing Glitter. I think that will work. It's also silver, so that covers the silver kind of gray option. But just to make sure I really do, you know, have it covered, I also pulled out some Spellbinders silver assorted pack. So it's got glitter, it's got foil, it's got 2 different types of foil, and it also has like a matte and a pearlescent. Very pretty. So I'm going to play with that. The Versamark is for the embossing powder. And then the last thing on the list was ribbon. And I didn't really want to go with like an all gray card or silver card. So I pulled out some blue, some light blue ribbon. And I have this like really thin ribbon here that I thought would work. And I might even be able to use it up, which would be a bonus. What else do I got here? Maybe this thinner striped one, or this grosgrain ribbon might work. I think these other ones are too big, but I don't know, you know, until I get playing, I'm not going to know, right? That's the challenge for this month. I hope you play along, and for some inspiration, here's what I came up with. Okay, so we're going to do some prep here. I'm going to have 2 iterations of similar elements, but just configured differently. So I'm going to emboss using a quarter sheet of 8.5 by 11. I'm going to emboss a snowflake on 2 panels. So I'm going to use both folders, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So 1 and 2 embossing. So that's the first thing I'm going to run through the die cut machine. I'm going to take my precision plate. So it's one of these, like it's got like a metal backing instead of the plastic, and I like to use this for my detailed dies. I'm going to use a snowflake and some of that glitter cardstock, and I'm going to cut 2 of those. Okay. And then I'm also going to take some more of that foiled cardstock. This is a matte foil from that same Spellbinders kit, which I had already cut down into quarter panels, which is also the size of this background die. Now, I did it this way to preserve paper, but if you aren't concerned about preserving paper, the better idea is to cut a piece slightly larger than your background, and that'll cut it to size. But because I did cut it already to size, I want this to be lined up perfectly in here, so I'm just going to take a little bit of tape and adhere this so it doesn't shift when it goes through my machine. Now I am putting pretty side down because I want the die to press into the foiled cardstock, and I'm going to run this through the die cut machine twice, and think that is it for this stage of prep. So let me go do that and I will be right back. Okay, I do want to share with you how well this die cuts. So this is the cardstock from Spellbinders. And the reason why I say that is because I do not have a lot of patience for poking out all the little bits. So if it gets to be too difficult, I pretty much give up, okay? So this stuff cuts pretty well. I've done a few of these now, and with the die cut precision plate and running it through twice, so I run it through once and then backwards, it does seem to come out pretty well. This is just with my fingers. Obviously, if I had like a pokey tool or something like that, I might even be able to go a little bit faster. When it comes to the background die, I am going to use a brush, and I'll show you what I do with that here in just 1 second. You see these pieces come out pretty easily for glitter paper. I think it's pretty impressive. I've had some glitter paper where you just can't even cut through it. I guess they put like some sort of plastic backing or something on it, and yeah, it's not die cuttable, but this is really good. Well, what you would expect from Spellbinders, considering they are a die cutting company. So that is one snowflake. Here is the second. I forgot to show you the embossed panels. There's the one and there's the other. And now let's talk about the background die. So I have a couple of these. This is from Sizzix. I have the one from Spellbinders too, which is a little bit smaller. I got this in a box, so you know, here's a little pokey tool. So this one's probably better designed overall, but I do find I just gravitate this one probably because I've had it for longer. Because this is an edged die, it did cut through the paper or through the tape that I had on there. So I'm just going to peel that off first. And I haven't found it to be an issue having it on the back. It seemed to have die cut through that as well, so I typically don't worry about it. I like to try and keep it in the die if possible, and the first thing I like to do is I just like to roll this over top of the whole die. And I find because it's still in the die that you can be a little bit more, I don't know if I want to say aggressive with it, but I'm not so worried about damaging the paper because the die is supporting it. And I pretty much, I think, have most of it out, but there are a few little stragglers. I'm just going to pop this out of the die. So see, it looks pretty good. Again, because I pre-trimmed it, I might have a little bit of edging. And I'm okay with that. Pink tape did show through there. Okay, and there are a couple pieces left, and it does come with a foam. I don't have that one on my desk at the moment, but I do have this one, and then I just like to go over it really quickly on the areas that I can see didn't pop out with the die, and it really isn't too many. I think that looks pretty good. So I have 2 of those panels cut out now as well. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, the next step is to alter the embossed pieces. Now, I'm kind of doing this in a assembly line approach as opposed to last month where I showed you one card and then I showed you the second one. Let me know what you prefer. Do you prefer, like, if I'm going to make multiples, to do assembly line or individually? The reason why I like to do assembly line is because then I just use that product or that step in one shot, and I just think it goes quicker. At least it feels that way. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pattern and I want to trim it down to roughly a square. And I'm using the end points and my trimmer to just kind of eyeball it. So there's a ledge along the edge here that I'm just going to line up with the end point, and I'm just going to trim that all the way around the same distance. Right? I'm just making it easy on myself. Okay, so we end up with something like that. And for this one, we're actually going to trim this out like a die cut. And because there are some angles in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very rough, and I mean a very rough cut. around this. And that just, I find when you're doing like detailed cutting, if you don't have as much excess cardstock kind of hindering you, it allows you to go into those little areas a little bit easier. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my better fussy cut scissors and I'm just going to trim around this. So I will come right back when this is done. Okay, the next step we're going to do is use the embossing powder, and we're going to use a similar technique for both cards, but just tweaking them slightly. So the first one, what we're going to do is we're going to take the square paneled embossing folder, we're going to take the Versamark, and in this case, actually I don't need this sheet of paper, but we are going to need this one to catch the embossing powder. What we're going to do is we're just going to kind of rub the embossing ink, so in this case it's Versamark, just along the edge. It doesn't have to be perfect, and in fact I think it looks a little bit better when it's a little bit uneven. And my thought for this is just looking for an edge that kind of looks frosty, but only with silver, silver glitter. So we're just going to go around all four sides, and when I'm happy with that, we're going to take the embossing powder and we're just going to dump that on. And we're just kind of doing a very, very light border of silver glitter embossing powder. I like using this to add a little bit of shine on my cards, but not like over the top kind of thing, right? So in this case, we have a lot of glitter and foil already going on. So I think, just a little subtle touch on this layer is what I want. So you'll see it's a little bit thicker in some spots and a little bit thinner in others, and I like that. So I'm going to take this off camera in a minute and emboss that. But before we do that, let's do the other card, or let's do the embossing for the other card. So I'm just going to pour this back in. And in this case, we're going to do a similar idea, only we're going to take the card base for this card, okay? And we're going to do it along the edge all the way around, but we're going to be a little bit more aggressive with it. So I'm actually just going to do like a direct ink to paper. And I guess it's probably almost 1/4 of an inch. Now, in this case, I'm going to line my card with some cardstock so I don't have to be precise. So you're going to see here that this is not like a perfect border. It's going to get covered with that panel, and yeah, it's going to get covered with that panel, so you're not even going to see that it wasn't very straight. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is. Okay, pull back the collection, put this on. I'm pretty generous with embossing powder just because I know it's going to all go back in the container for the most part anyways. I'm going to tap that off so you can see, right? Like, I'm not perfect at all. If you wanted to be precise, I guess you could use like some sort of masking tape or something to mask off, a very neat border, but who's got time for that, right? I don't. And you're never going to be able to tell anyways. So I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to heat both of those up to set them, and then I will be back. Okay, so this is what that piece turned out. I really like it. Again, it's not perfect, but that's okay. And this one is how that border turned out. And it's a little bit warped, but that's okay. By the time we add all the panels on it, you're not even going to notice it. Now, I did take one of the silver panels and I trimmed it down to 4 by 5 1/4. And I could just adhere it on here, but remember how I said I wasn't being very precise? And so because I wasn't very precise, and I don't know how well this is going to come up across on camera, but you can see the silver or the silver glitter foil come through bits here, and then this is white, which I'm not loving. So what I'm going to do instead is I've got another piece of cardstock. I'm just going to adhere that on top of it. It's going to give it a little bit of dimension, which I'm not mad about. And it's going to give me that uniform white layer peeking through all of the snowflake holes. This die has a lot of openings. To be honest, I don't have the patience to go through and be real precise about it. But I have found that even if I just kind of do like this wiggly thing, I get enough adhesive on it and I don't seem to have any issues with seepage or anything like that. So in this case, I am just going to line it up with 2 edges just to cut down on the number of cuts I have to make. I see there's one piece that escaped popping out. Take my trimmer and we'll trim that to size. Okay, and then this panel is ready to go. And I think we are ready to assemble. So first thing, this one that we put the white backer on is going to attach to this card base here. Okay, and we're just going to have a nice mat of silver embossing powder. Now, could I have used silver glitter cardstock for the layer? Yeah, you could. But the challenge was to use embossing powders or powders. So that's how I've got the powders in on this one. I'm going to take some foam tape on the back of my die cutout or my fussy cutout snowflake. And we're just going to add some foam tape to raise that up. Okay, so now we're just going to eyeball center this in. This adhesive is super sticky. Okay, then we are going to take one of our snowflakes, and again I just add a few drops on some of the larger connection points and in the middle, and that seems to be sufficient. Obviously I haven't put these cards through the mail yet so that would be, I guess, the ultimate test, but you know. Now this one actually is an interesting, the die actually aligns really well with this snowflake and with the embossed snowflake, and so I chose to kind of align that up so that it matches. We're just gonna give that a little press. If I have a block, we'll put that on while we do the next bit, which is with some ribbon, and we're gonna tie a bow. And I'm gonna do the 2 bunny ear approach for this. I like doing this approach when I am not tying the bow to anything, like where it's just a standalone bow. So just 2 bunny ears and then pop that through. And then I just kind of fuss with it a bit until I'm happy with this shape. I don't want it to be too big because I want this to go in the middle of the snowflake. And I don't want it to overwhelm it. I'm going to have a little bit of a tail, I think. Again, not too big. I think that looks okay. Last minute adjustments. I don't know. What about you guys? Are you bow fussers? Like, do you sit there and fuss with it until it's just perfect? I'm going to take a glue dot, and it's a pretty big glue dot, so I'm just going to kind of squish it up and then stick that in the center. And which way do I like it better? This way or this way? I think I kind of like it this way. Okay, we're going to stick that in the middle. Just like so. I guess I'm a fusser. And yeah. So that's the card. I'm not putting a sentiment or anything on it. I usually have a message when I send out Christmas cards on the inside, and I think that's sufficient. Okay, so let's move on to card number 2. We're going to take that other panel. We're not going to trim this one down at all. We're going to do the same bits where we're going to just scatter some glue all over there. You notice there's a couple pieces still in here. I'll have to pick those out with a pin. Okay, this is the size of the card front, so it should be a pretty easy alignment. So that's that. Now we're going to take this panel and we're going to take some double-sided tape. I'm going to take 2 tiny pieces of this. I'm just going to rip them off. We're going to flip this over, and on the back side we're going to pick 2 of the arms from the snowflake, and we're just going to cover that with the tape. And this is so that we can wrap the ribbon around. So I'm going to peel that off. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see that. So there's 2 pieces of tape. We're going to take this ribbon. I don't think I'm going to use this all. I was worried I wasn't going to have enough, but I think I'm going to have just a little bit left over of the ribbon. Okay, so we're going to just lay that on top. We really want it to go across the middle of the snowflake. We might have to move this over a little bit. Just like that. I don't want to pull it too tight. So you'll notice I'm trying to bend it this way as well, because what happens is if you pull it too tight, it bends the other way. So let's just, you know, try and counter it a little bit. There we go. Lay it down flat. Touch that. And then while we have this ribbon out, let's tie another one of those bunny-eared bows. So 2 loops, and then just pop that through. And we'll just play with that a little bit. Okay, cut that off. Okay, on the back of this panel, we're going to add some foam tape. I'm real precise, as you can see. This one's a little bit long. No worries. Stick it on there. Okay, so we want this to go along. So this is a vertical card. We want this to go horizontal, right? And you could either do it up at the top, or I'm actually going to do it more in the center. If you want to use grid lines to try and even that out, you definitely can. I am just going to eyeball it because that's what I do. Just like that. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the snowflake that we did on the other one. It's just on those big those larger connecting points, we're just going to add some adhesive around the center, just some dots, and then up at the top here where this last big loop kind of connects. Okay. And then this center of the snowflake, we want to put in the center of this one. And I don't think this one matters so much. It doesn't really align quite as nicely as the other one. So I think we're just going to go right there. Hear that down. Maybe stick the block on while we grab a glue dot. Same deal. Smush this up. Stick that in the middle. And then figure out which side of the bow is your favorite. And adhere that down. Just like so. And I think we will trim these off a little bit. Okay, and that's the second card. Nothing too terribly fancy. Well, I wouldn't say not fancy. The foiling and glitter and everything does make it, but I think it's pretty. I think they turned out all right. So that is it for this month's challenge, this month's Craft with 5. Like I said, there is a playlist below. Be sure to check those out. If you're playing along and if you're part of my Facebook group, be sure to share your project, right? So the 5 items I will list in the description and in the title. So just to reiterate what the 5 items are, it should be snowflakes, something silver or gray, ribbon, powders, and some sort of die cut or dies. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, you guys, and until next time, happy crafting.